What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I am Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we've got a special episode for you
Special
here,
episode.
talking about the state of the Energon Universe.
Yes.
Now, we did one of these previously, talking about X-Men at a very crucial point in its development, in the X-Men line's development. And we're going to do the same thing here for the Energon Universe, which comes from Skybound and Image Comics. Particularly, we are checking in right now because Transformers 24, the final issue of Daniel Warren Johnson's run, dropped from Skybound and Image. So they haven't said this, but it kind of feels like phase one of the Energon Universe is done for the moment. And then we're kicking it into high gear with phase two. So what we're going to do over the course of this episode is I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Energon Universe, which I'm sure all you know, but for any new listeners or people who don't know what Energon is, it's basically like pizza, but for robots. I think we can fairly say that.
Oh, yeah. It's like cubed energy. That
Exactly. Same sort of thing.
Wait,
definitely
cubed? What are you talking about?
Let's not get lost in the weed there. I apologize. I was trying to give it a
You did this.
I ruined it.
I ruined it. Yeah.
Anyway, we are also going to talk about our familiarity with these properties and interest in them. We're going to talk about the future of the Energon Universe. And if there is time here at the end, we got a couple of great questions from our Comic Book Club Discord, which you can join at patreon.com/Comic Book Club, also for ad-free versions of all of our podcasts. So we're going to try to get to all of that. We'll see what we get to. But basically, the groundwork here is from 2005 through 2018, IDW had the license for all of the Hasbro properties and had their own Hasbro interconnected universe, which include Transformers and G.I. Joe. However, in 2021, Skybound, which is run by Robert Kirkman, among other people, expressed interest in acquiring the licenses. And that's kind of the last that we heard about it for a while, until June 14th, 2023, Skybound released Void Rivals #1, which was by, at the time, Robert Kirkman and Lorenzo De Felici. Since then, Andre Bresson and Connor Hughes have joined the art staff on that title. And there was a big surprise at the end of Void Rivals #1, which was the introduction of, to quote the great Mark Wahlberg, "I think we've just found a Transformer." And that was a big surprise. And then they announced off the back of that, yep, in fact, we're going to launch this Energon Universe. It is our own interconnected series of titles. Transformers was announced as ongoing. That was initially by writing and art Daniel Warren Johnson. However, Jorge Corona has become one of the consistent artists on that title. Then Jason Howard and Ludo Labi joined as well. And we also got 4 interconnected G.I. Joe miniseries: Duke by Joshua Williamson and Tom Riley, Cobra Commander by Joshua Williamson and Andrea Milana, Scarlet by Kelly Thompson and Marco Ferreri, Destro by Dan Waters, Andre Bresson, and Andrea Milana. And that led up to G.I. Joe by Joshua Williamson, which initially had art by Tom Riley, and now I believe Andrea Milana is on the title. There's also in there been 2 Energon Universe specials, which were first released for the Free Comic Book Day. And in addition to the characters that we mentioned, the Void Rivals characters, which are original, the Transformers characters, and the G.I. Joe characters, they've also thrown some mask characters in there, and I believe made references to Visionaries, which I'm tipping my hat to what's your familiarity with Hasbro. I don't know what that is. Yeah, I'm with your dog, Justin. I don't know what that is. I'm pretty upset about it. But just to kind of wrap this up here, this line has been a huge success. We don't have exact figures, but 1 million copies were sold of the franchise, meaning all of the different titles, as of March 2024. It regularly pops up on sales charts as a little asterisk there. Sales charts are kind of unreliable in the comic book industry because not everybody provides consistent data for everything, but we do know of Image Comics titles in total, it's mostly the Energon Universe titles that pop up there, as well as like Invincible and Battle Beast in that universe for Robert Kirkman as well. And it's also been award-winning. Daniel Warren Johnson won a 2024 Eisner for Transformers. Jordi Belair won for coloring for, among other things, Duke and G.I. Joe in 2025. And Kelly Thompson was also nominated in 2025 for Scarlet. So that's that's the rundown of the universe. Let's take it way back, like pre-Energon for a second. We don't need to spend too much time. Back up the Optimus Prime, if you will.
Good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And let's talk about like what our feelings about this going in are. And I do want to start with Pete. Frequent listeners of our podcast know this, but like, not to give up what you're about to say, but you are the diehard Transformers G.I. Joe fan on the podcast. So talk about that a little bit, Pete.
Mr. Toybox, we call him. For those of you just coming in, we do call him Mr. Toybox.
All the time.
Yeah.
Well, it did. I was at the race at a time when G.I. Joe and Transformers were prevalent. It's where I got all my news and information about life.
Prevalent.
Yeah, I had a lot of PSAs afterwards, which really helped and also got me in trouble. But just to address it a little bit, I loved watching the cartoons as a kid. Snake Eyes was my favorite, and there was a couple-parter series where we thought Snake Eyes died, and that was before the internet, and I was crushed. For a really long time. But anyways, I'm a huge...
for a really long time? So you're saying a lot of things that I feel like I have a lot to follow up on. Getting in
we
trouble.
don't have time. We have a lot to get through on this podcast.
We have time. Pete was in trouble because of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I got into a fight with the bully because he didn't see the latest episode where you learn at the end that bullying isn't the way. So I kind of confronted my bully about this, and it didn't go well for either one of us.
Oh, so G.I. Joe betrayed you.
Yeah.
Led you astray.
I realized the error in my ways was I was assuming that this bully was up on the latest G.I. Joe. I should have opened with, "Hey, have you seen, G.I. Joe?" So
because the Hasbro has a message. The bully's got his fist pulled right back over your face. Like, actually, have you seen G.I. Joe? Because this is a pretty interesting situation if you haven't seen the last episode.
Well, it would have been an interesting... My idea was to talk to him about the episode. You know what I mean? To get his thoughts. Like, hey, man, it seems like you're clearly in the wrong here.
Man, always podcasting.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel like we're getting in the weeds here. Pete, please continue about...
Let's just say real quick, though, that Pete was podcasting even as a young boy. In the middle of a fight,
Nobody
he was
listening.
Like, hey, actually, what's your take on this most recent episode of G.I. Joe?
Yeah, and also Mask. Watched a lot of Mask growing up. So, and I had all the... not all the toys, but some of the toys of G.I. Joe and some of the toys of Transformers growing up. So, I mean...
What about you, Justin?
Huge fan, similar to Pete. I never won or lost any fights based on my understanding. I'm talking about Transformers.
Did you really live then? You know what I mean?
You're right. I wasn't allowed to watch G.I. Joe because of their guns. A lot of guns involved. Yeah. Even though there wasn't a lot of...
nobody got shot on that show.
And honestly, I have questions. That seems... Even as a kid, I feel like I'd be like, who's getting hit with these bullets? But yes, it wasn't allowed to watch G.I. Joe. Got a little bit of it from friends' houses and whatnot. But I will say, huge fan of Mask as well. Which, if you don't know what Mask is, it's cars that turned into other cars, driven by people wearing pretty cool masks. But
it was basically cars that turned into weapons and flying things. And
we had a car that turned into a boat.
Right.
A lot of the cars turned into other vehicles.
But off the back of that boat, they would shoot those barrels that would,
Very cool. Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a jet ski would come out of different things.
Yeah.
Plane would do this. So
it was the motorcycle jet ski move that was really cool.
Yes, very cool.
Yeah.
So big fan of that. I liked, and that was like very much more of a spy. I remember it being like more of a spy show. G.I. Joe was like army, military. Let's go.
Yeah.
While Mask was like spies and regular people who would put on these like giant socks over their head and shoulders and become the Mask soldiers. Fan, but wasn't allowed to watch some of it.
I had a ton of Transformers, loved playing with them.
Sorry, Alex, if you could also reveal any kind of traumas or anything related to the enjoyment of the show.
Megatron killed my dad. Is that relevant to this discussion?
Yes, I was hoping you would share that. I remember when that happened. It was a crazy episode.
I had we did that. That happened live on the air. It was pretty nuts. So yeah, I had a bunch of Transformers toys. I never really had any interest in the Transformers cartoon. Definitely actively disliked the G.I. Joe cartoon because I didn't like cartoons with guns. That wasn't interesting to me. They were just soldiers.
What are you, my mom?
Yeah, right?
Pretty much.
Wait.
Yeah, I led a lot of...
Were you raised by Alex?
I started the Satanic Panic. Have I ever mentioned that? Because I was like crazy. No, I don't know. So like, that
Wait a
was never of
second.
interest
You
to
had
me.
the Transformers, but you were like, hey, I love these, but I have no interest in other things
Yes,
connected to
because
them.
I was making up my own stories about them.
Oh,
Like I
your
saw
own
Transformers
writing.
the movie, but I don't think I really cared about anything else particularly.
That movie didn't rock your world when that
It was
came
all
out?
right. That was not what I was into. We've talked
Weird
about this.
Al!
We had
What do you
different...
even talk?
I didn't like a lot of 80s cartoons. They felt very janky to me because, like Justin liked to say, they were made by people high on cocaine selling toys, and that was pretty much it. And I read the subtext
he can't back
even as
that
a
up. He
young
can't back
boy.
that up.
Anyway, I will
Hey,
say,
Mom,
though,
these cartoons seem kind of coked up. Anybody
I will
else?
say, though, that, like... I've certainly probably I don't think they're good necessarily, but I've certainly followed the Transformers movies. I love the Transformers ride at Universal. I think that's one of my absolute favorite Transformers thing. But relevant to the comics, like there's been some really good runs on G.I. Joe in the comics, particularly that I've enjoyed. I'll shout out Paul Allore's run, which was at IDW, which was phenomenal.
Really
and
like
there's been some good Transformers comics as well. So, like, I'm a comic book fan. I've been more into that than I was the other properties going into this. And I think that's a nice segue to talk about the Energon Universe and not to keep monologuing here, just to give, like, my overall view on this thing. Even though I was like, whatever, I like the toys, not necessarily into the other things. This came out with a bang. Like, this was... I don't know if this was... I think this was pre-Ultimate Universe, Absolute Universe, but just overall in comics, there's been this resurgence of lines that are reinventing properties for a new audience. And this crushed it at the beginning. Like, Void Rivals, I loved the surprise at the end there. I thought that was great. That they managed to hold on to that for apparently a whole year or so with nobody figuring it out is awesome. And Daniel Warren Johnson crushes it, particularly on the first arc on Transformers. The initial G.I. Joe miniseries were amazing as well. Like, I was super into them. And there was just like a crazy amount of hype that I was getting from the beginning there. And I think that comes from excellent writing, but also the line's overall focus on art as well. And we've seen that pan out with the Ultimate line, with the Absolute line, which should be like the base level we're coming from comics, thinking about both the writing and the art. But really, that's what has made this thrive, I think, is making sure that it's not just like, we're high on cocaine and putting out a bunch of comics that have nonsense stories. Instead, we care about these things, but we're making sure they are bringing in new readers. We're making them accessible for everybody. And we're thinking about what are fun about these things and then putting that on the page.
Just one kind of thing I wanted to make sure we were clear about. We're joking about it, but Larry Hama did an amazing job back in the day writing G.I. Joe comics.
Oh, for sure. And still does it. He's still on G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, which is wild. But that is not part of the Energon universe, so we're not going to talk about that anymore for the moment. Overall thoughts on, like, the beginning, what started?
Well, let me say, like, you laying that out it reminds me just how exciting it was and how specific they were with everything. They had a plan from so deep in the past, right when they sat down. And the surprise at the end of that first Void Rivals issue was, like, it was shocking, and I could still picture the panel. Like, it feels like the way it was designed. Like, Robert Kirkman thought about this. He's a showman, and like, it felt like we as adults were looking at a piece from our childhood, in the same way the characters were discovering the Transformer. So that was just really smart. And then using that, using Void Rivals as the launch point into Transformers, and doing the same with the G.I. Joe miniseries into the main G.I. Joe book, I thought was also really smart because it got us into the world. We started to see what it was about, much more modern than the original cartoons, not a true nostalgia play, not cheesy at all, brought into the current narrative style and storytelling, and then slowly getting into these flagship titles that lead the way. And like you said, the Daniel Warren Johnson Transformers first arc, hyper emotional. Exactly what we'd expect from Daniel Warren Johnson. But the art was like big. It was different. It felt like you could feel the mechanics of the Transformers as they transformed all the time. Like, it was just such a strong launch, and I think that's why it's still thriving.
Yeah, I also agree that some really powerful imagery and panel work, especially in the Transformers and Void Rival stuff. But just to kind of get back to what Zalbatron was saying, when they came off, all the spin-offs were really impressive too. What they did with Destro, there was a lot of different, really well done. It was well orchestrated. It really felt like they did a great job of taking their time, kind of planting all these seeds and doing, instead of rushing comics, really kind of making sure that the product really kind of all matched and felt like this was this Energon universe. I feel like they kind of did a great job of learning from all the stuff before and choreographing and planning something that was really well executed that the fans really reacted to.
Yeah, I feel like Joshua Williamson, as sort of the grand poobah of the G.I. Joe side of this, does a great job of not making them all sort of fit together, but chasing different tones with these books. Like, the Cobra Commander book is weird. Like, it gets into some wild ideas. The Cobra Law of it all and stuff is like, what? It's so... And there's perfect... Well, did you guys hear that? That was
yeah, I did. Oh, you heard that as well? I thought that was the Pythona I keep in my house.
Oh, nice.
Smart.
Wow.
Keep your enemies close.
He's been Cobra all along, I told you. The Duke book being very like Captain America meets Nomad, like all-American out on the run from the government. And then the Scarlet series was a standout for me by Kelly Thompson, which was just great spy, a character that was just... it wasn't a ton of dialogue. Let Scarlet just cook in this book and be a badass spy character. So, and then that all coming together in the G.I. Joe book, which gets into a much bigger storyline as in the further adventures of Energon really start to coalesce around everyone's favorite part, the Energon.
Yeah, exactly.
The cubes. Everyone loves the cubes.
Everybody loves a cube. You know what I mean?
Pizza cubes, baby.
Oh man, can you imagine if pizza came in cubes? Oh, that'd be great.
You're gonna eat your pizza with a knife and a fork? Poser, fake.
Is the
what are you talking about?
cheese dripping off the side?
Cube.
No, why is that easier? That's not easier.
You're
It'd
gonna
be fun. I'm
mash-
just saying it would be fun. It would be like more pizza.
No, do you like eating things in cube form? What do you eat in cube form? Sugar cubes?
Yeah, definitely. Ice.
You eating straight cubes?
Yeah, I always eat straight cubes, bro. I also think that what's interesting about the Alex saying that like he hated the Transformers movie and thought it was garbage was that Daniel Warren Johnson used that movie for the basis of the Transformers comic. It was a direct correlation to that. A lot of characters that you saw in that movie in that comic book. And yeah, I think he did such a great job of not only like honoring that movie, but kind of using it as his kind of like backbone for the story and just really rewarding fans who loved Transformers before it became popular and then got Michael Mann and, maybe lost some people. So I think that the
Michael Bay?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Michael Bay. Sorry.
No, Pete has
Michaels.
Michael Badge Transformers would be great.
That would be honestly awesome. Very moody.
Ooh, yeah. Well, anyways,
Down to earth. No Transformers.
Optimus Prime has a shotgun in the backseat of himself.
But yeah, impressive Transformers run by Darren. Now I can't even talk.
Darren Aronofsky? Is that what you're going to say?
Darren Aronofsky, yeah. WJ.
And I
Daniel
gotta say,
Warren
when
Johnson.
Soundwave and Megatron did ass to ass, I was like, that's a little fun.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, I thought they set it up really well.
Soundwave
really?
was one of my favorite.
Well, they're addicted to a more intense form of Energon. It all comes back to the cubes.
Oh, my God. Got to cube it.
Chasing that high.
But yeah, I just feel like not only was there kind of heart to it, but a ton of action and just really epic panels that you felt, that you reacted to. When I think about the Energon Universe, I really think about just some incredible emotional choices and some really shocking panel work. So, Yeah, just really impressive. That's the fun thing about having something you liked years ago, and then you put it in somebody else's hands to see what they kind of do to it. And when they're honoring the source material and then making new choices, it feels fresh. It feels new.
That is, I think, a good segue to get to the probably more contentious part of our podcast, which is let's talk about the restaurant. We've talked about those initial arcs. That
the restaurant?
There.
Did you say?
The rest of the run.
The restaurant we're opening
We don't
together.
all need to pick on our mispronunciations all podcast long. Just the funny ones, I think.
Yeah.
We can stick to
Okay.
Honestly, opening a restaurant would be fun. Pizza cubes, naturally. And I feel like we could have a chance. Like Chicago deep dish pizza, but worse or more intense.
Don't make that suggestion. Chicago will go for it. So let's talk about the rest of the runs. I think we all agree this started strong. This started awesome. It was very exciting. And I think where we start to diverge is after those initial arcs. And by diverge, I mean Justin and I have been much more critical on our weekly Stack podcast.
Yes.
Pete, you've been, not to, talk your opinion, but you've been like, Energon Universe strong pretty much the entire time, all the way through. But here is my feeling on what has happened after those first arcs is we have gotten away from the individuality of the titles we've been talking about as the universes start to get jumbled together. Pythona and Cobra La 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 and a bunch of Transformers are now...
If you're not going to do it right, don't do it, bro.
Void Rivals G.I. Joe also has its own Transformer, and Transformers has stayed his own thing, and we could probably talk about that separately because we've had some issues there. But I think we've lost some of that, that thing that Justin was laying out with the different G.I. Joe miniseries, which is that very specific focus of the universe as we've gone further and further. And as somebody who is a much more casual fan of this stuff, even though I do have a base understanding, I feel like it has leaned more and more and more on nostalgia as it goes versus the base idea of End of Void Rivals Around. I don't know what Transformer that is, but I do know that's a Transformer. So for diehard fans, you're like, oh shit, that's literally whoever
Hound.
it was. Hound at the end of Void Rivals #1?
Yes.
Okay.
Hound.
Anyway, it does, but my point is it doesn't matter whether I know it's Hound or not. I know it's a Transformer, and that's exciting and fresh and new. Versus now, a lot of the reveals that we're ending issues with is here's this next G.I. Joe character, here's this next Transformer, and it's started to lose its freshness for me as it's gone on.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's one of the things that, as a fan, that I want. I'm like, okay, great. We got a little bit of this. Who else can we kind of explore and do things with? And, that's part of the exciting thing of let's see what other Transformers and what other kind of things. And I can see if you're not into it, you're like, you guys are just laying on different people here that you're just interchanging them and I don't see what's happening. But if you did like the Transformers, it's fun to kind of see oh crap, what's that guy's name? Oh, I can't remember. And I'm not sure if we're talking about the same issue where I was talking about Hound, but it was in the last issue on the stack where a Hound made an appearance, so that's why I said it. But I do think there's a difference of
yes. That was the most recent issue.
Yeah. If we're talking about oh man, I like this thing, I'm a huge fan of it, I'm going to still keep enjoying it because they're sprinkling in characters that I remember. If you're kind of that wasn't great, I'm not going to keep liking this thing because it's going to just be this thing that I didn't like. You know what I mean? So I feel yes, I agree with what you're saying, and it would be great if we discovered more and there is more story and it wasn't just kind of hey, remember this guy? Sick. Okay. Hey, remember this guy? Sick. So yes, I could see why that would get a little not as good, but I'm hoping once we kind of get past that, then we're going to get into it. And so that's what I'm hopeful for. But
so you're saying you've been noticing a little bit of that that it is like the sort of end of issue drops of a reveal of a character that we don't really know much about.
Well, I mean, I think we can all agree that comics have a history of like a last page reveal or a character kind of drop towards the end of a comic. So I don't want them to go against kind of what the formula they set up was, but sure.
Well,
I mean, after a while.
I also want to mention, we talk about this, I think, incessantly a lot, is, like you're saying, Pete, yes, the last page reveal is a thing. That's how you keep people hooked for the next issue. And there is a certain school of thought that, like, even if you don't know who the character is, if it looks cool, it doesn't matter, because when you're first reading a comic, you're like, oh man, Mr. Sinister showed up at the end of this X-Men comic. Who's that? I don't know. He looks crazy. Yeah. And then you want to read the next one. The issue that I think I have with these reveals is a lot of these G.I. Joe characters are just human beings, and a lot of the Transformers
deep, bro. I love it.
Are drawn kind of
machines.
They're just robots with slightly different colors.
Well,
robots in disguise is what they are.
Well, I think they're a little too far in disguise, because I think the same way Alex does, where it's like at the end of an issue we get like, look at this guy. He's a Toyota Corolla. and then last issue we got a reel of a Ford Focus, and they're very different. I'm like, they're pretty similar to me.
Whoa, what are you talking about? They're very different.
But like, I know, but I think for the reader and from a storytelling perspective, it feels like in this middle period of Energon that we're in right now, it's been a lot of these reveals, and this story keeps getting like these little extra knobs on it of these characters in these Transformer and G.I. Joe reveals. But we don't get a larger idea of what the story is, what they mean to the bigger story, the emotionality of the Toyota Corolla versus the Ford Focus. And I'm sure they have fun sedan names to go with them. But like, that's what I'm missing, is it feels like when you're playing with all of your toys, it starts off small and it's like, oh yeah, these are the heroes, these are the villains, and they're fighting. But then it gets to be like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a rainy day, and you're like, okay, so these guys are fighting these guys. The blocks are actually alive aliens. Those Matchbox cars over there, those are surfboards. And what they need to do is cross this volcanic valley. It's like, okay, you need to go outside and play for a minute.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I also I do think there is you have a point, right? We all want better story. We all want kind of more interesting things when we're reading comics. But it is a little bit like you guys walked into the M&M store and are like, what's with all the fucking M&Ms? This is getting ridiculous. So, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck do you want it to be?
That's fair. Wow, Pete, you just sort of transformed into a reasonable podcaster. I don't know.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
I heard
I will throw out on the same discussion that I think right now, for me, of the 3 titles we're getting from the Energon Universe, the one that hits that most consistently, most successfully is G.I. Joe, which despite being like, I think the most recent issue, and we should just put spoiler warnings here when we're talking about any of this, but like the most recent issue we were talking about, they introduced Night Force, and there's a bunch of characters were deep cuts that even Pete, our fan, was like, I don't know who those are.
Yeah.
He was like, I know that one guy with the goggles. I was like, oh, cool.
The ski mask.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably called goggles, I'm going to assume. Or ski mask. Could be
snow job. We don't know.
But this title, at the same time, it's been not exactly 50-50 for me, but there's 50% that, where it's like, this guy showed up, and now this guy shows up. And we've talked to Joshua Williamson before about this, and he showed off his action figures and play sets to us, so he's literally thinking about it like that. But like at the same time, we've gotten a really interesting arc about CoverGirl and Baroness and how they're bonding. Yeah. They're very much opposites. How do they meet in the middle? How do they figure out how to work together? There's intrigue going on in that title at the same time. And I think it was the first arc of it, maybe it was the second arc, where Duke was just going insane and being like, I've got Cobra right where I want them, and he's in the middle of Cobra, and Cobra Commander's there. They got a million guns on them, and the Joes have gotten the crap beat out of them. That's the sort of thing that's fun for me, because it isn't just playing with action figures. It's exactly what we're talking about. We've emotionally set up these characters pretty well. How do we play against that? How do we push them? How do we push Duke and Cobra Commander, 2 characters that couldn't be on more opposite sides, into a place where they have to come to some sort of agreement on something? That's interesting, and I like reading that.
Yeah, and also what's really interesting is this idea of like what's also happening in the comics is this kind of like Cobra Commander, Destro struggle for power, which is something that's continued in not only the comics but also the cartoons. Like, how are these guys on the same side? And what's interesting about Baroness and CoverGirl that I didn't kind of realize till reading the comic is they're similar. They're both spies who kind of play people for a living, you know? So it's this interesting, like, oh, wow, we get these two together, and that would be a kind of really interesting combination. And to hear them kind of talk and go back and forth would be great. So, yeah, I think it is playing with toys in a way, but it's also bringing things to life as someone who is an old fan, seeing things in a new way, which is exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I have really enjoyed these the G.I. Joe run. But I think it has just gotten big. Even hearing you talk about the Destro Cobra Commander fight, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Oh boy, there's just so many people, so many things going on. I like micro moments, like the Duke stuff. The Baroness, really interesting character. The Joes don't trust her. She's from Cobra. She has to earn her spot. I like that arc. We have two characters. I'm going to call them Wrench and Scout. One of them a human, the other one's a Transformer, and they're working together. They were like undercover, and with the Cobras, like that's a really interesting idea. It just feels like and I don't know if it's because of the press to combine to keep the Transformers and Joes in the same story. It just feels like there's one step too many of things going on. And I'm making fun of Energon as a basis of story, because it's like basing a story around filling up our gas tanks. But the idea that Cobra and by extension the Joes are chasing Energon as a fuel source for weapons. At the same time, the Transformers needed to live and needed to bring the Autobots need to bring other Autobots back to life, like super high stakes. Like, that's interesting. It just feels like it went from simple and clean and so exciting to too much smashed together. But I do feel like maybe in this next phase that we've sort of dubbed, that we're going to come out into a newer idea. And I know there's going to be like bigger crossovers, and maybe that'll help to just get the stories together where they need to be and stop. It feels like it's been a coy building up to it.
Before we get to talking about the future, just to stick on this point, I think the biggest offender of what you're talking about, Justin, is Void Rivals, which in some ways is 100% a classic Robert Kirkman comic. Like, we've been reviewing his comics pretty much as long as we've been around, Walking Dead, Invincible, and there's always arcs of a Robert Kirkman comic where it's just like 15 things are happening in this book. And it literally feels like 2 pages of following each character, and you really just got to read it all together. Some of them are funny, some of them are weird, some of them are just like 2 characters having a conversation. But it also started as like, this is a Romeo and Juliet type story about 2 people from opposing planets who have to figure out how to work together. And now it is wildly complicated with things jumping all over the place, where there are bits that I've liked, and I've talked about this. There's the character Skunkzoid, who's just a pig man who recently found out he was cloned from another pig man because he was cut in half. It's very funny, and he's constantly talking about...
He just misses his family.
He just misses a family, but he never had a family to begin with. And it's been... That is definitely like Robert Kirkman being like, I'm making myself laugh while I'm writing this stuff, so I'm just going to follow this thing and see how far it goes. But exactly what you're talking about, Justin. That's like 2 pages in the middle of an issue where also we're got this Cobra Law stuff, and they have evolving armor, and there's some Transformers just hanging out and chatting and fighting some people. And there's 2 guys with very similar armor, and meanwhile, the Void Rivals of the title, I don't even know what their names are at this point, and we've read maybe 24 issues of the book, partially on me, mind you, but like I just can't hook into them.
Well, I think the way the Kirkman books that were able to get away with those like giant complex stories, Invincible prime among them, started so small, and we spent so much time with the Invincible cast, with Mark, with his mom, with Adam Eve, all those characters. We were so attached to them, we knew them, so we were able to follow them, I think, more cleanly. The characters in Void Rivals, I'm like, oh, this is interesting, but I feel like we didn't have enough time with them past the premise, the Romeo and Juliet of it all premise. The character I know the most is Handroid.
I was 100% going to say that, yes.
Who is like a great character, funny, really cool idea, but like definitely not the main character.
He's also,
Dwight
for
Schrute.
anybody who isn't reading it, he is a glove. He is a talking
Yeah.
glove. That is what
Yeah.
the character is. So,
But even that, there's been now we have a second handroid been introduced. and
Talk to
everyone's
the
like,
handroid,
"What'd you-"
bro.
Yeah, no, very very fun. That's what like
This is fun.
As critical as we are, like there's so many great ideas here, and like I hate to be like my big problem. Too many great ideas. But it is that a little bit.
But I think it will kind of like, yeah, I think they were building to this thing, and then it will go that. And I hear you, but it's also a good problem to have a lot of ideas, and then hopefully years later we'll be talking about like how it slowed down and really dove into stuff. I also think that like there is a difference between like an Invincible or whatever, where we're talking about we got to spend time with it, where Board Rivals is also assuming that like maybe you have some knowledge of Transformers, G.I. Joe, that kind of stuff. So maybe we're going to start a story in the middle, and maybe we're going to kind of go from there. But
I feel like they did that a little bit.
yeah,
And that's what we were talking about, really liking. My problem is more so that when we get to the middle of this, it's huge. It's just a giant middle that is hard to support with the base that we got because it went so quickly from like introing sort of in media res for some of this. And then suddenly we're like, whoa, look at all these guys.
But
look at all these Transformers.
I think it's a good problem to have. It's like if the one critique that we have of this bunch of great ideas and bunch of great characters is slow down, great. That is easy.
Yeah. My biggest
hold on,
flaw,
I
I
do
work too
wanna-
hard.
Yeah, exactly. You work too
I want to
hard,
leave some
man.
time to talk about the future of the universe as well as potentially get some questions, but I do
But
think we should probably talk about the one title that we have not gotten to
Yes.
yet, which I do feel like has been the most contentious one. Yes, Pete.
Yeah, I just want to get to a point that you brought up before we move on. You talked about
Sure.
Skunkskoid, and I think there is something kind of fun about having a robot as a character where there's this human element of like somebody who, you know, remembers a family they didn't have. You know what I mean? And there's a lot to kind of explore and like about it because it is this ridiculous looking character that's having like real human problems. You know,
A clone
Yeah.
with human problems.
Yeah, so I think there is something really creative and interesting about that, and it's a ridiculous looking thing, and it's got a ridiculous name, but that's the kind of fun of Transformers and G.I. Joe. You know, if you guys can get past the names, there's a lot of interesting ideas.
I love the names. It's cool.
Yeah, Shipwreck is fun, dude. You know,
Yeah,
talk to your
exactly.
parrot.
We
So-
can make up any name for a Joe.
Let's talk about Transformers because, like we said, first arc, fantastic. DWJ killing it, bringing a ton of emotion. It is a best-selling book. It's one of the best-selling comic books in the
Huge
industry.
comic.
Fans, including people on our Discord, have talked about how much they love it all the way through issue 24.
And how
But-
much it means to them, even beyond
Yes.
that. Like they love a story, but it's very meaningful. I think Pete, you talk about that as well. So
Yeah,
Yes.
and I don't want to discount any of that. But for my money, this didn't work past that first arc. There have been moments that worked. There have been things that I've really enjoyed. There are heartfelt things leading up to the end. We reviewed the issue. They redacted like half of it when they sent out the press copy, but since then I've gone
Yeah,
back.
we're talking about
And
the
I
press
think we've
copy.
all gone back and read it, and I don't know why they redacted it. There was nothing that was particularly like break the internet spoiler necessarily.
I disagree with that, bro.
Okay. Spoilers, Starscream dies? Is that what you're talking about?
Starscream shoots himself in the head, bro.
So we have a little bit of a contention, and I really don't want to get too lost in the weeds here, but there's a lot of confusion about that. Megatron is a tiny little gun that controls people and causes them to shoot. Starscream is holding Megatron at the point, and Starscream betrays Megatron. So I think Megatron shoots and kills Starscream, not he's like, I'm going to use Megatron to die by suicide.
All I know is, you know, we cut to him and he's like putting the gun up to his head. We cut to space, seeing the gun go off, and then the next time we see Starscream, he doesn't have a head. So you tell me what happened.
Literally just
we
did.
just I think he
Well,
just
I disagree.
The thing about leading even through the end, like we hit a lot of the notes that I like about DWJ's run here, where We get Optimus Prime and his weird connection to Spike's dad, who he ate earlier in the run, which was emotional. Jorge Corona's art, I think I generally like, but there's a lot of it that's very messy, where it's just robot blocks hitting against each other. The last panel that he drew, it's just this beautiful like light in the darkness in a broken city. I thought was really beautiful. But it was so hard to connect with this run because it is leading into what I would not, this is too strong, but like all the worst qualities of what we're talking about with the Energon universe, where it is at a certain point felt all nostalgia, all toys just banging up against each other.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I feel like I've had a hard time connecting with the characters, less about the complexity of it and more about it just feels like they're not moving. It feels like they're, pardon me for saying this, spinning their wheels, and they got a lot of wheels, these guys, in place. Like, Optimus is like, we're losing, I can't do anything, and that's been like 10, 12 issues of that. And I just want like to break out a little bit from get these characters in their own pockets. And I feel like Megatron, Starscream, they're just so like screaming mad and killing humans every which way they can. But they've proven that they're villains. They have said the same lines of like, you care about these humans, and I just killed 10 of them at the mall parking lot or whatever. I'm like, okay. Like, Optimus seems so frustrated. They seem so like just nasty and killing more people. It feels like it's been in neutral, and I'm ready for it to kick into high gear and honk honk, Optimus Prime, let's drive.
Well, it's weird to hear you kind of say that, because it's like that's their whole deal. That's who Megatron is. Megatron isn't going to be like, I've been murdering all these humans. I really feel like I should turn myself inside and really think about what's wrong.
I don't want him to change being a villain. I want him to be a villain in different ways. Or like, just from a storytelling perspective, I know from like the first arc or the second arc, he will kill humans to make Optimus mad.
Yeah.
Killing 10 more doesn't change the stakes of the story. So I just want that to continue. And I like the ideas here. The Optimus connection with Spike's dad, like all of those little things, and the guilt. Optimus is driven by so much guilt. The father figure that he is to the Transformers, but he is questioning himself. Imposter syndrome. All these ideas are very emotional, but they feel like he's just spinning on them. And I need that hero to step up and turn on his windshield wipers or something.
Well, that's the nice thing about Optimus Prime, is when the chips are down, he's at his best. You know what I mean?
But he doesn't do anything. He's just been wrecked over and over and over again.
He like a lot of people. You struggle with leadership. You struggle with choices. It's not an easy job. I just think that, like, when you see a Cyclops just suck at it for so long, it gets frustrating. So maybe you're kind of getting a little taste of how I view Cyclops. But I do think
But it's interesting you bring up that connection, Pete, because they seem like they've been in similar places. Unhappy, frustrated, and not being able to move his squad forward in a lot of ways.
I think the issue is, and I'm sure I'm forgetting things, and fans, feel free to flame me in the comments if there's other plot points that I missed. But for the most part, over the course of this run, it's been, and Pete, just give me a second to finish here, it's been Autobots want to stop the Decepticons, and Decepticons want to stop Autobots, and it all crests in them fighting in Chicago. But other than they don't like each other, like Justin's saying, I don't know what the stakes are or why they're doing this, other than they are. And a plot, I think, needs more than that. There needs to be a reason they are having this specific conflict that we are reading right now, and that is what has been missing from the run. The most successful thing to me was the plot arc where Optimus strapped on Megatron's arm cannon and clearly was being corrupted by Megatron, even though he's like, whoa, don't know what's going on here. And it seemed like it was leading up to something, and then they finished it by him being like, it seems pretty bad. I pointed my gun at somebody. They're like, no problem, took off your arm, and then he was fine. Versus, if we are leading up to a conflict with Optimus and Megatron in issue 24, make it something about that. Make it about, like, Optimus being corrupted by Megatron and somehow getting beyond that point versus, like, a last-second save coming from somebody else and us having the same, like Justin is saying, essential physical conflict that we've seen 1 kabillion times before.
Well, that's the problem, is it's like, watching the show, reading the comics growing up, these are the same. Okay, Megatron is evil. He's going to kill whoever. He's going to do the evil things. Optimus Prime tries to stop him. He comes up short a lot, but every once in a while he wins, and that's what's great. And so, you guys are complaining about what's wrong with this.
No, I'm not complaining.
You went on a fucking monologue, so you shut the fuck up. All right?
Okay.
You guys are complaining.
Took 45 minutes, but we got
shut the fuck up.
Megatron.
So you guys are complaining about the premise of the show, the premise of what this is. This isn't, it's good versus bad, and bad is way more souped up than good. But good sometimes wins, and it's fucking heartbreaking. And that's the whole show, and that's what it's been from the beginning. Yeah, I'd love for other things to happen, but if you're jumping in, this is what this ride is. You said you like the Transformers ride. Well, come fucking on, all right? Because what happens is Optimus struggles with leadership. He struggles with loss. He constantly loses, but every once in a while he gets a W. And so it's hard for me to sit here and listen to you guys complain about what this whole thing is and saying, well, I don't like this thing. Well, you shouldn't have got on if you didn't like it, because that's what this is.
Here, I'm gonna say something about Transformers the Ride. Transformers the Ride, yes, it is Autobots versus Decepticons, but the plot of Transformers the Ride is the Decepticons are invading a facility and you have to get the Allspark out of the city. If Megatron gets it, it's essentially Decepticons win, end of the world. And of course you do it.
That's what this
and
is,
Optimus
too.
Prime says, I'm proud of you. The plot of this was Autobots and Decepticons don't like each other, fight in Chicago. I don't know what was going on beyond
But
that.
that's the whole thing.
There's nothing specific.
Autobots want the humans to live and to save Earth. The Decepticons want to kill it all to get to an Allspark. They're always fighting over Energon. They're always fighting over the Allspark. One wants to murder and kill and to rule the universe. The other would like to live peacefully with what else is going on in the universe.
So you're saying the catchphrase for this is Transformers, what you expect will meet your eyes.
There you go. There you go.
I think what Alex is saying is he's saying, Transformers, I want more to meet my eyes.
Okay,
yep, that's
all right.
100%. What I am saying is the Universal Studios Transformers ride has a better plot than Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers comic.
How dare you? Daniel Warren Johnson has brought us amazing works.
Alex, I will say...
I'm glad you were so moved by the ride. I'm glad that you're defending a ride.
I got to cheer. When Optimus Prime, it's a 3D ride. It leans onto your car. Is like, good work there. I cry a little bit.
If at the end of this arc, Optimus turns to the panel and says, I'm proud of you, reader, Alex, I think you'd be pretty on board.
2 thumbs up, man. 2 thumbs up. All right. This was a big fight, and we're running a little low on time here, but I do want to get and talk about the future. There's 3 big things that are coming up here. Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora are taking over Transformers, starting with the next issue, and we've got 2 big events running in the other 2 comics. G.I. Joe is going bi-weekly for the Dreadnought War for 3 months, starting with issue number 13.
Wow.
And Void Rivals number 25 starts a 8-part arc called the Quintesson War. So big stuff coming up here. What do you guys think about this? What do you want to see else in the future? I have an idea, but go ahead, Justin.
I mean, this is a good time to be talking about this because this does feel like a big point with the changeover on Transformers and these big arcs coming together for the other books. I mean, I want to see it sort of slim down from a narrative perspective and get into these big stories and hear what Robert Kirkman wants to change about the Transformers book. We didn't talk about it, but the potential introduction of the Mask characters is super interesting to me because that's the perfect sort of human response to Autobots and Decepticons is they invent cars that have other cars in them that are driven by humans. That's like... That's the perfect human response.
They jump into cars that then can transform into things they can use to fight.
I think exactly
flying
what I
weapons,
said.
Basically.
No, what I'm saying is that makes a lot of sense if we were to put this in the X-Men relationship to things. This is the humans. This is like the Sentinel program that the humans in the Energon Universe are going to build to fight against the Decepticons. I think that'll be an interesting power dynamic and maybe shake up this dynamic that we've been complaining about, and Pete's been saying, it's fine, it's always been that way, and it'll never change, and I love it, of the Autobots versus Decepticons.
Yeah. I also think what's interesting about the Dreadnoks is, as you guys probably know, Dreadnoughts are pure chaos. They don't follow rules. They're not going to do what you tell them to do.
Not like Cobra.
Well, yeah, exactly. Not like Cobra, because Cobra has their marching orders. They're all scared of either Destro or Cobra Commander, so they're going to do whatever they're told to. But not Dreadnoks. You can try, but they'll get bored and start blowing stuff up just for fun. So I think it'll be a nice kind of leveling up to have the Dreadnoks on board. But I'm nervously excited about how they're going to kind of move forward without Daniel Warren Johnson.
Well, I think Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora is a good team to take it over. Particularly excited to see what Dan Mora is going to do with Transformers. He has beautiful, clean art. The one thing that I'll throw out there is nothing against your love of Mask, Justin, but I think we need another jolt in this universe. We need another big surprise, and for better or for worse, I think that's another big property. Now, I was taking a look at the other Hasbro properties, and there's nothing really that jumps out, unfortunately. The licenses are in other places. Like IDW has My Little Pony, ROM, Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Gem and the Holograms, and Micronauts. There's nothing really there that makes any sense.
Gem and the
My Little Pony would be a jolt.
Yeah, that would be weird, though. You've also got things from Hasbro like Lincoln Logs. That would be huge, right? They should introduce Lincoln Logs. Or they've got Peppa Pig and PJ Masks. That would also be weird. The only thing that jumps out to me that absolutely isn't going to happen because Boom Studios has the license, but Boom Studios has the license to Power Rangers. And that's the one thing to me that, like, if you suddenly threw Power Rangers into the mix, that's something that's like, how does that work?
Wait, why are you asking for more?
Yeah, you're saying it's too chaotic.
Because, no. I think the line needs to expand, right? And we need something that is going to shake up and change this world. Because like we're talking about, eventually you're going to be like, we're already at the point that like, who's that guy? Is the cliffhanger for almost every issue. So, I don't know.
Wait, you say Mask isn't exciting? If you were walking down the street and a boat came out of a car driving past you, I think you'd be pretty shocked, Alex.
I would be excited.
Also, if you saw someone driving a car and then a giant mask came over them and a sick intro started playing, I mean, you would get pumped.
I would definitely. That is 100% true. I guess we'll see what happens.
So one of the greatest cartoon intros of all time is Mask.
Let me throw out another property that isn't Hasbro but is cool. A cartoon I used to watch called Starcom, which was a similar thing where vehicles transformed a lot, but that was set in space, an area that Void Rivals owns a little bit, but not around Earth. That could be interesting if we had almost like a Guardians of the Galaxy type situation happening.
Or Captain Bucky O'Hare or something?
Honestly, they could go in the other direction because we were talking about how much we love those G.I. Joe miniseries. Go back to that. Do like a series of 4 linked miniseries focusing on like CoverGirl and Dreadnoks or whatever you want that have very specific focuses to that. That would be very fun. What are you counting?
What are you counting?
How long? Usually as soon as we bring up Captain Bucky O'Hare, it's a countdown until you say,
let's crocus some toads.
Yes! Yes!
I can't believe you called that.
We are running out of time, but I want to throw out one closing question to you. And for anybody listening or watching this, definitely let us know your thoughts on the Energon Universe so far and what you want to see next in the comments. Very excited to hear from all of you because we love this and we want to see more of this. But I didn't get to all of the questions from our Discord, but I thought this was a fun one to leave it on. This is from Josh, and I believe Steve Hungsberg said this as well. If you could be a Transformer, what would be your alternate form? That's the thought that we'll leave on.
Great question.
I mean, a Soundwave is a great one. I mean, you turn into a boombox. You know?
No, this is you, Pete. This has got to be you.
Yeah, what would you turn into?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And Pete, I'm just going to call it. You would turn into a garbage plate, probably, right?
A pull-out couch.
What does that mean?
Because
nice I'm so chill.
Yeah, you like to chill on a couch.
Oh, man.
For me, I'd love to turn it into a podcast microphone. So I'd be like, and then it would just be 2 podcast microphones looking at each other.
Just yelling at each other. I feel like, don't we need to lean into more vehicular transformations here, guys?
Oh, yeah, that'd be sick.
Something a
I
little
don't know.
more functional.
We got I don't know if you guys read it, but there was that great Skybound all ages graphic novel, Ballpoint Worst Bot Ever. He's a ballpoint pen, so we can do anything at this point.
Yeah.
Turned into like 76 Cadillac. That'd be amazing.
Calling your make and model. What's the VIN on the Pete? The Pete Caddy? I think I would go with. It's tough. Tough call.
Did you turn into a Labatt Blue? Like what would you
that
think?
That would be nice.
Yeah.
But then I feel like I would be potentially getting drunk all the time, like by other Transformers. Yeah. It's hard to drink yourself when you're the bottle, I would think. Plus, I'd be chasing my own.
Yeah, you gotta
formula.
break a couple of ribs first. You right? You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly. Get them removed. Yeah. Megatron, would you mind removing a couple of my bottle ribs? I'm working on a project.
No problem.
All right, great
really
note to
good.
end on there.
forward,
Thank you
man.
for your questions in the Discord. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. We had to talk a very weird joke at the end there. If you'd like to support us, patreon.com/comic book club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to YouTube. Come hang out. We'd love to chat with you about the Energon Universe. Apple, Spotify, Android, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show. comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, transform and roll out.
Maybe a really sick frisbee. Sort of a fun transformer.
Sick bee, bro?
Yeah.
Or a pizza cube. That would be fun. I'd transform.
Oh, that's
that.
we have a restaurant opening tonight, guys. We haven't done anything.
I'll see you there.